What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. We are back with a brand new tier list, and in honor of the live-action Lion King remake, which comes out tomorrow, today, we are not talking the live-action translations. We are talking about the Disney Renaissance period, and what that is a period between 1989 and 1999 when Disney was just pumping out the classics, right? Not every movie was a 10 out of 10 incredible, but every movie had quality to it, and it felt like Disney was just on this run in which no one could stop them. So today we're talking about all of those movies, plus I added an extra special movie that was around that time. It was a Disney animated movie, and I hold it very close to my heart. We'll talk about it when we get to it, but right now we're going to find out where all of these movies place on my personal list. I want to reiterate, this is not the end-all, be-all, the best list on YouTube. Absolutely not. These are my personal favorite movies. These are really the movies that got me into animation. I grew up with many of these films. I hold them very close to my heart, and they really did shape my childhood, and in a weird way shaped my adulthood. They kind of molded me into what I am now, and I want to credit Disney for just the incredible effort put forth with each and every one of these films. And I'm here to say right now, not one of these movies I think is awful or really even bad. You can look at that bad tier and say, see you later, bad tier, because I'm not doing it. I hold all of these movies, like I said, close to my heart, and nostalgia may play in a little bit. It's always a factor when looking back at movies that you know and love. That's okay. I want to be honest with you guys and tell you how they impacted me, and I want you guys in the comments telling me which movie is your favorite. Place them on tiers. Do your thing. This is your place and space to talk about Disney Renaissance films, plus the extra one we're going to talk about. Okay, let's get into the tier list, and we start with Pocahontas. Now, Pocahontas is really the one that people look back on now and say, you know, it doesn't quite measure up to the other ones. It's got, I think, the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score. It is the one that a lot of critics looked at the time, and they said it's not as good as the other movies that Disney's pumping out right now. And this is probably the one that has been the longest amount of time since I've seen it. It's been about 6 or 7 years since I watched Pocahontas, but as a kid who grew up with this movie and holds it, like I said, close to my heart, as I do all of these films, I'm going to have to be the unfair guy and place Pocahontas on the good tier. I'm not going to say it's a great movie or even an awesome film, but from what I remember, like 6 or 7 years ago, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And growing up, I remember really enjoying these characters. The music is fantastic, as is in most of these Disney movies, but it's really the characters that got me invested. And the story, it just felt like this grand, epic story about appreciating someone and respecting someone. Sure, you could watch it in 2019, and I guarantee some of the themes do not hold up, and that is probably part of the reason why it wasn't as accepted critically and by certain audience members. But as far as I can remember, I enjoyed the movie. Who knows? Maybe I go back now, I don't like it as much. I need to go back and revisit this movie, actually. Okay, moving on. Now we're getting in to the cream of the crop, or some of the cream of the crop. We're talking Aladdin, and Aladdin is one of those films that you go back to and you revisit for one thing and one thing only. Okay, there are multiple things. I made that up, but Robin Williams really does steal the show as the genie. One of the best voice performances of all time, but it's not just that performance. It's the music. It's the grand scale feel to the film. I feel like all of the Disney movies on this list, they have this distinct feeling to them. Aladdin just feels like an epic love story, a love story that shaped the majority, I believe, of our childhoods, and one that has really stood the test of time. The fact that they could remake this, change a little bit about it, but not enough to really hurt the fan base, right? That means to me it is a story that works in 2019 just as well as it worked when this movie first released, and because of all of those things, I think Aladdin is awesome. This movie is just full of incredible action, a really good villainous performance, and like I said, Robin Williams as the genie. You will be missed, sir. One of the best to ever do it. Next up, we're talking great once again. Actually, we're not talking great. We are talking awesome. And this is the one that, it's a bit older than some of the others. It's not one that shaped the youth of certain people my age because I was born in 1995. The movies that I grew up on this list are a bit more recent, but Beauty and the Beast is one that I go back and I revisit, and I look at the reason why it was so critically appreciated back then. Getting nominated for an Oscar, that is a big deal for an animated movie. Never happened prior. It's the story, right? It's the wonderful love story, once again bringing the love story into Disney, but then it's the music, right? Tale as old as time. What the heck just happened? I blacked out for like 5 seconds. I didn't sing, you didn't hear anything. I just love the music in this movie. It's not just the music though, it's the music, it's the voice performances. Overall, I would say, other than maybe another movie on this list, this is probably the second best group of voice performances, and you just feel for the Beast in this movie. You understand where he's coming from. You understand that even though he is rough on our lead, he is still this lovable creature deep down inside, and she peels those layers back. It's just such a beautiful love story, one that resonates to this day, and for all of those reasons, I think it deserves to be on the awesome tier. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, let's move on to Hercules, Zero to Hero, baby. Gosh, I love the music in this movie. Now, the story for me, oh no, he's going down the bad route. Just hold on. The story for me isn't as good as, say, an Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast. It's a story that clearly we've seen before. It's ripped straight out of the mythological history books. That's not a thing. I don't think some of the side characters work as well as side characters in other movies on this list, but those are like the minor nitpicks that I have for a great movie. Y'all thought I was putting Hercules on the good tier. No, we're still putting it on the great tier because I truly believe this is a great movie. Some of the best and most uplifting music out of all of the Disney movies, and just a really awesome character. You see this guy go from a skinny nothing to this beast of a man, zero to hero, just like that, and the story is one that impacts you. By the way, James Woods as Hades in this movie is just brilliant casting, some of the best I've ever seen at Disney in general. He is such a good villain, so funny, so crazy, so just full of emotion at times. There's a reason why there are so many Hades memes, and yeah, I just love that character, and I truly love this movie. The next movie on our list is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And this is one that I didn't watch as much growing up. I didn't watch as much as a child. I went back and I revisited, and I'm like, you know what? This is genuinely a good movie. I'm not going to put it on the great tier. I'm not going to put it on the awesome tier. I'm going to put it, like I said, on the good tier. Now, this is one that I see sometimes online. This movie is underrated. This movie is not held to the standards that a lot of people believe that it should be, because it really is one of Disney's darkest animated movies. If you look at the themes and the deaths in this movie, some very gruesome deaths, but it's also about a character who just can't fit into society. He's trying to find his place, and it really is a deep and emotional story on that level. The only reason I place it personally, now this is just my opinion, on the good tier is because the story doesn't resonate with me as much as some of these others, but it's still genuinely a good movie, and that's why I place it on the good tier. Next up is Mulan. Now, we just saw the live-action Mulan trailer, and we're missing Mushu, we're missing the music, and everybody's up in arms. I'm kind of okay with that because I liked the trailer, I thought it was good, and I like the fact that we're getting a retelling, but seeing I'll Make a Man Out of You in live action on the big screen has always been a dream of mine, because it is genuinely, I think, my favorite song. And I know I keep saying this is my favorite, that's my favorite. Song-wise, just specific songs, I think this is my favorite out of all of them. I have listened to this song on repeat. I love it so much. And I just love the story of Mulan. It's uplifting. It's about a girl who just wants to go out and fight for her people, fight for her country. She's not allowed to do it, but she is going to do this by any means necessary. And the way that they tell the story with the music and the zany, wacky side characters, it all just comes together at the end. And the celebration at the end of this film just represents the celebration that the fandom has for this film. And because of all of those things I just said, I think this is one of the more epic movies that Disney has ever done in animated form, and I truly believe it is an awesome movie. Next up on this list is The Little Mermaid, and The Little Mermaid, once again, holds great music, holds great characters. It is not quite as awesome as the movies on the awesome tier, so because of that, I'm going to put it on the great tier, but it's still a great tier. I had some people in another video saying, well, you didn't put it on the awesome tier, so clearly you hate it, and I'm just like, no, it's still great. And I think The Little Mermaid is still great. I just really like the character of Ariel. I think I relate to her more than any of the other female characters in the Disney movies of this nature. I just love her ambition. I love how she wants to go where no one can go or no one has went before as far as she knows, and just the motivation that she brings me or brought me as a child growing up. I did watch this one quite a bit, and I loved the villain, Ursula. Oh my goodness, what a menacing villain. Truly horrifying, especially at the end when she gets really big and the ship crash and all of this stuff. Truly an enjoyable film. I think it's a great Disney movie, and it is one that holds up to this day. I'm excited for the remake. Next up, now this one is not one that I go back and revisit quite as often as I should, and other than Pocahontas, this is one, it's been a bit since I watched it, but I do remember enjoying it. I liked the journey of the characters, and it is another one that I see there are groups of people online saying Rescues Down Under, one of the most underappreciated and underloved Disney movie of all time. Honestly, I'm just not as familiar with it. I've only watched it, I believe, twice. Once when I was a child, once in the last 5 or 6 years, and I did enjoy it both times. It's just one of those, sometimes you grow up and you kind of miss a movie here and miss a movie there. It is that movie for me. I have one of those underappreciated Disney gems. I may talk about it in this video, so you're definitely allowed to say Rescuers Down Under is a great or an awesome movie. For me, I'm not putting it on the okay tier. I still think it's genuinely a good movie because I liked the adventure. I liked the characters. I liked the fact that you can put us in the shoes of Wilbur and Bernard, and the fact that you have Bob Newhart and John Candy in this movie. I mean, the cast says enough, and it might be a reason to actually go back and revisit this. I may appreciate it more just because of how good the voice talent is in this movie. It's definitely one thing that stuck out to me before I was even reviewing movies. I said, man, the voice talent in this film is top-notch, and it's absolutely that. I'm going to put Rescuers Down Under on the good tier because I believe it's a good movie. All of the movies on the good tier, though, honestly, I could go back and revisit and move them up. But we're not doing that today. Today, we are talking about Tarzan. That is the next movie on this list, and Tarzan is another. You get Phil Collins to do the soundtrack for your film, and you're in good shape. You just have to kind of deliver on the story, and Tarzan, for me, it does more than kind of deliver. The relationship between Tarzan and Jane, and you know, it's the classic, oh, that's the Tarzan and Jane of this movie, but that's because their relationship was so strong. One thing that I loved about Disney during this time period is, yes, they gave us great music, and yes, they gave us funny and zany and wacky side characters with voice work from Eddie Murphy and Robin Williams, but you always focus on the relationships between the main two characters and the romance. It's a romance that works for kids, and it also works for adults, and the terror in Tarzan is something that I think enough people don't talk about because there are terrifying elements. I mean, the one scene, you guys know the scene that I'm talking about, when one of the characters die, it is, and I know all they show on the screen is shadows, but you're just terrified as a kid if you think too hard about it because you're like, oh my God, that guy just bit the dust. And that is one thing that I think Tarzan does super well. It's one reason to go back and revisit this movie, and I personally think Tarzan is a great Disney film, so I'm going to put it on the great tier. All right, Austin, you've been teasing us this whole time. What's the movie that you believe is underrated or way more underrated than I think people give it credit for? Everyone has one, and everyone's allowed to have a different opinion. Mine is The Emperor's New Groove. You know, out of all of these movies, other than maybe Mulan and Aladdin, I would say The Emperor's New Groove is high up on my rewatch list, man. I have seen this movie so many times. It's that one DVD that I always kept with me as a kid. You know, sometimes you just have that one thing, that one element, that one movie that you like to go back and revisit, that one Disney film that you can quote more than any other movie in history. And I can quote Aladdin, I can quote Lion King, but for some reason, The Emperor's New Groove is... I know, it's random, right? You would look at me and say, that guy likes The Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, I mean, that's the movie for me, man. It is so underrated, and it's funny. I think the reason why, and one, it's not technically included in the Disney Renaissance 10 movie list that I looked up online, so technically this is cheating a bit, but I wanted to include it because it is that one that I grew grew up with, that I loved. And like I said, I think the thing about this movie is there's no music. I mean, there's music, but it's not a musical compared to these other Disney films. There's just music in there. There's really good characters, a strong lead. I think David Spade, this may actually be my favorite performance of his, because his chemistry with John Goodman is just through the roof. You care so much about their characters. Not as much the Emperor Cusco at first, but you grow to love him because he starts to learn from his mistakes. He starts to come around, kind of like Doctor Strange at the beginning of that movie. You don't like him because he's a douchebag, but at the end of the film, you come around on him. Woody, at the beginning of Toy Story 1, you're like, all right, this guy's a bit self-centered, but you come around on him. It's the same case for Cusco in this movie. You come to love him because he goes through so much. He turns into a llama. I mean, what a weird concept. A concept that should not really work, and one that I think is underappreciated. It spawns sequels and TV shows, none of which I think measured up to this film. And a quick shout out to Kronk, because my God, Kronk and Yzma, some of the funniest. I mean, pull the lever, Kronk. Poison that I put on Cusco. Cusco's poison. Squeaky squeakers. Squeaking. Never have you met anybody as weird as me, guys. I love Emperor's New Groove. It is absolutely one of my personal favorite Disney movies, and I'm putting it on the awesome tier. That's the one that I think is going to turn a lot of people away, but you know what? I love it. I think it's awesome. Wait a second. There's one more movie on this list. I'm absolutely an idiot. Guys, The Lion King, listen, as much as I love The Emperor's New Groove, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Mulan, you guys can step aside for just a second. I'm not saying the quality here is significantly better than those movies. It's a little bit better because, you know, you gotta put The Lion King on the King tier. But The Lion King really changed the game of animation more than any of the other movies on this list. And as you can tell, there is not one movie in here that I even think is okay. I think they're all from good to the king, but there is only one king. And we learned that from The Lion King, and that is The Lion King. That is the top of the crop. It's the one that I think everyone looks back to and goes, that changed the game in terms of animation, not just the voice cast, which is one of the best. When I said best voice casts a while ago, this is number one. This is the best voice cast out of any of them, and not just the characters, because you dive deep into each individual character, and even the ones that aren't fleshed out the best, they're still fleshed out. There's no need to flesh out certain side characters in certain movies. This movie takes the time to do that and still clocks in at like an hour and 30 minutes. That's incredible. But for me, it's the animation. That's what sets The Lion King apart. That's what makes it better than any other animated movie, in my opinion, prior, because it just does what it has to do, and then it does way more in terms of color and expression on the characters' faces and the movement of the camera. It felt like, wow, that's incredible cinematography. Oh my God, it's a 2D animated movie. How are they doing this? I took a film class a few years ago in college. I took many film classes, but this one in particular, my professor was obsessed with The Lion King. It was an animation class, right? And he would always just go back to this movie and talk about the detail that they had to go through to make this movie work at the time, right? Today it would be easy. It's a flip of the switch. You just got to draw it and then you animate it. Back then, you had to take the time, you had to put forth the effort, and you had to do that with all of these movies, and especially the further you go back to Snow White, my God, it took them, I don't even know how they made that movie, but the detail in The Lion King comes from the detail that all of the animators put in, and we look at this movie and we appreciate the cast and we appreciate the directors. I look at the animators. I look at the people behind the scenes, maybe the ones who don't get the recognition that they deserve. And I look at that really for all of these movies, man. The people that get the recognition deserve every ounce of it. But those who don't get the recognition, they still deserve it, because the amount of heart, the level of heart that goes into all of these films, I think is what sets Disney apart. It's what sets these classics apart from other animated movies at the time, other animated movies before that, and other animated films after. And that's the reason why The Lion King impacts me more than any of the other movies on this list. Barely, but it still does. It's the one that I grew up with. It's the one that I loved. I love Simba, Mufasa, everyone in this film, I think absolutely kills it. and I believe it is one of the best animated movies of all time, and it deserves its place at the top of the mountain. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. What a blast. I love this. This may be my favorite tier list yet. Mostly has to do with the fact that I can go back and revisit my childhood, but what did you guys think? Were you upset at this tier list? Are you mad that I didn't put anything on the bad or the meh tier? Do you have a mad Disney movie? I have a feeling Pocahontas is going to be a little lower on some other people's lists, but you know what? Once again, this is all opinion-based. These are my personal favorites. I love movies. I love watching them. I love making them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate all of the love. Later on this week, we will have a Disney live-action tier list, going to be very different, and we still have to review the brand new Lion King movie. I'm watching that Thursday night, so be on the lookout later on that night. You guys are the best. I appreciate everything you do for me, and I'll talk to you very soon.